Welcome to another session, folks. We're excited to have you back. And I have the honor of two great industry vets here with us today. We have Denee Evans from CMLS and Nick Bailey from RE/MAX. Thanks for both being here.
Thanks for having me.
Great to see you, Sam.
So we want to talk about a hot industry topic right now, and that's data. And obviously, we always talk about data at RESO. But brokerage data and brokerage data through the MLS. We've had a lot of requests in the industry over the years about making that process easier. And the topic right now is there a way to mesh policy and rules and licensing really to make it easier for brokers to get all their data out of the MLS? And this really came to a head in 2019 at a RESO conference in St. Louis, where the brokers in the broker advisory group said, can we just get all of our data that we're allowed to have from the MLS in one simple access method and with one holistic set of rules? And it really caught some fire. The brokerage community got together, gave a lot of feedback into what became the Now policy. And that was sort of an unofficial push to move forward this movement to get more efficient access for brokers and their data. That's now with CMLS. In what you might have heard of as the LEAP policy. And we'll talk a little bit about that later. But Nick, I want to start with you because this is a broker initiative. Brokers were looking for this efficiency in working with their MLSs. So can you talk a little bit about what is the problem we're trying to solve and what does the atmosphere, the landscape look like right now for a broker working with MLS data?
Yeah, great question. And, this has been a hot topic for years, just in many different flavors. But I'm glad it's a hot topic again because I was around when we were introducing IDX and VOW policies. And I do think some of them are antiquated for where we're at today. And so what we're trying to solve, I think, is two things. We're trying to eliminate friction from a disparate, complex industry landscape. And we're also having to keep in mind what the balance is of what brokers and agents want, but also what the consumer or the buyer and seller want. And I personally think that if we're really honest with ourselves, we are slow to adopt and innovate within this space, or we suppress innovation within the tech space, within our industry, because of the boogeyman of data. And I hear it all the time, and in the things I've done, I've heard so many times about, well, I don't want X or Y to have access to certain data to do certain things. And we're living in this time, not only within our industry, but just as consumers of, does our device listen to us, or who has what data? And so we back up and we go into protection mode. And I think what some of the conversation today is people are saying, data is not the boogeyman. Let's just not have it get in the way of suppressing innovation, and let's help it drive eliminating friction. Buyers want it, sellers want it, agents and brokers do as well. And we need to move at a much faster clip to solve for that.
And I think to your point, there's that consumer focus. That's what we hear about in everything in the industry right now is what's the end benefit for the consumer and who's providing it. And if it's the MLS and the brokerage community, there's obviously value there. So Denee, that's a lot of the focus that you've talked about as well at CMLS as this broker initiative wanted to get that MLS input, wanted to get that boots on the ground input into this process. So can you tell us about what's happened at CMLS up to this point? Since that transition to you taking it on?
Definitely. One, I just want to make sure and add to what Nick said of just a saying I use all the time is how do we foster innovation while still ensuring the gold star standard that is MLS data? Now, change. No one likes to change quickly or likes change at all, but that is definitely, I think, a key point here. And so to build on that of what has been happening at CMLS so far is we did form a work group to start reviewing what was out there and what's going on and what are the pain points. And so the work group, we called it the Data Access Concepts Work Group, came together and started just reviewing the information and sent it out several different places for feedback on it. From MLSs, as you said, getting that feedback, how would the compliance work? How, what are the things we need to be looking at and questioning, and what could change and what could innovate while still ensuring the compliance side of it, that gold star standard of data is still there, being used by the right people for the right things. And so did that. And I think what's really great is what's happened so far, Sam, also is that it's not just been MLSs, but I think it's been a really diverse group of individuals that have provided feedback. And at this point in time of me being on board 6 years, I think this is the most people have looked at a policy in advance to provide input. So I love the collaborative nature. And we did get it to a point, but I think this one is definitely, there's a lot to it. And so the CMLS board did vote to send it back to the work group for some additional input, just to make sure that we did get it thought through. And if you haven't seen that, CMLS did also do on the clear cooperation policy, we produced an implementation guide as well. So not only is the policy coming out, but having the opportunity to say, here's how it could be implemented to help supporting on that actual implementation of something. So the board did refer it back to committee, and we're going to continue conversations. We're going to meet back up again and get some more direction from the board, and specifically how and what we're going to go after with the work group, and then taking it back out to the industry as well to continue to get that collaborative input and keep the conversation going, because I think it's pretty exciting what's happened so far.
And that's really been the goal of this process, is to get something to NAR, because there's a technical side to this, and then there's an organizational side. And this is something that if there's a policy initiative, it has to pass through some gates at NAR, and it has to have MLS and broker support to make it through those gates. So we're obviously looking for both of these different stakeholders to be involved in that process. What do those next steps look like for folks who want to get involved and be able to get their input into the process at CMLS?
Well, you talked about the steps going to get into policy. And I think we decided that needs, if anybody remembers that How a Bill Becomes a Law cartoon from back when, and I feel like we kind of need to make that up for how does policy become, how does it make it through NAR to the final result? And so who knows, maybe we'll still make that as part of this process. But I think the really important thing is that people can provide their input. There is no final point until it goes to the NAR board of directors. So I would say specifically get involved as CMLS, be on the lookout. We did send out emails. We did hold some webinars, and we are going to continue to get better at how we collect that input, both broker, MLS, and then also vendor side, because all of those parties are part of that transaction. So making sure that it's effective and that it works. So I'd say keep an eye on that. We'll be announcing soon next steps in meeting with the board of directors and direction from there. So
great.
Keep
and
the
that's
collaboration.
Exactly. And that's really important, because all the trade organizations are involved in this. We've gotten Realty Alliance leading our e-feedback. Major brokerage organizations have worked with us at RESO, and some of the technical concepts are being discussed this week during the sessions at RESO. So, Nick, it feels like, although there's always some back and forth tension between the brokerage and the MLS community, it feels like it's a better atmosphere maybe than it was 10 years ago when we had some really big blow up fights at conferences. What do you feel like the atmosphere is there, and what is the brokerage organization's role in fostering that engagement in that environment?
Yeah, I do agree with you that I think the collaborative nature of the environment has gotten better, because I think more people are understanding what the implications of this look like and will continue to evolve. I mean, come on, when I started selling real estate, I had MLS books, and no, I'm not 85 years old. I was just in a small market, but we were trained as agents to say, I have this power of information. And so for people that are seasoned vets in this business, the idea that this power of information value exchange between consumer and brokerage has gone away because of data and MLS, that's where this rub has all happened. And I think as we get farther and farther away from this, what people are realizing is data is not scary. It's the output of the product. It's kind of like that. Isn't there a cliche about like a dog chasing a bone and then they get it and don't know what to do with it? There's something like that. I'm missing it. But what I've seen over the past 10 years especially is brokerages and franchisors, our role has changed significantly, even in the last 10 years of how we participate. But people are chasing this data piece, and then they get it and say, now I don't know what to do with it. And so that's where I see that we are today, is people are understanding it's out there. It's out there. It's readily available. It's not hard to access just data in general. But the process in which we have in the industry working with MLSs, there's been friction of, well, it's my information going in. Why can't I get it out? And so what we think we have to look at is, yes, continue with collaboration, but we have to simplify it. And we believe wholeheartedly that the simplification, making it easier and making it more transparent for everyone involved is going to be the win. And when I say everyone, that's the end user, buyer, and seller as well. And so I think we all have to proactively take a role in that. For us specifically, we support the MLSs and the associations because we have a lot of our folks, brokers and agents, that sit on these boards and are very involved in the direction of where these go. We've seen good progress over the years in some of the consolidation of MLSs. We still have some that overlap. We still have some that are protecting their fiefdoms and are not open-minded. And if we can help with our membership coming in and as leadership contributing to moving this ball forward at a faster pace, we will. And our roles have to change in the process. We have over 50% of our headquarters employees that work on technology and data, including our recent announcement last week of G73, an initiative we've been working on behind the scenes for a couple of years of our own data warehouse. So now we're a vendor. We have an arm of our company that now is a vendor because we know that every hop that data takes, it's either delayed or degraded. We support RESO standards. It's what we go by. And I think the more that we can cooperate with that, the best wins will happen for all stakeholders in the industry.
And we know that you make significant investments to normalize your data, to work through these data access processes. I don't think any of the brokerage companies want to put out a case study on what that costs you, but it's significant. This multi-MLS mindset that we have to have in terms of setting up processes is really something that affects any brokerage of size. And it's a really important thing. Are there any specific things about the LEAP policy that RE/MAX would particularly have a pro or con position on, whether it's data access, ability to display, different usage rights and licensing? Is there anything that your folks are focusing on in particular?
The discussion about the buyer's agent commission being something that's displayed on listings. And even though it's not a requirement at this point, we proactively built it out nationwide. And so we turned it on even prior to those requirements. So we want to make sure that we can quickly make turns and be ready for these type of changes in the industry. And that's why we're trying to piece together the data warehouse that then we become the vendor on behalf of our network so that we can turn and move more quickly. We have had to rely on outside vendors and folks in the past, and they can't move as quickly. And if you can't move quickly, you can't innovate. So we support transparency. We support simplification in the process, but we also support being pro-consumer. And that's where that transparency piece comes in. We get caught up so much in, well, we want the listing agent displayed here and the other agent displayed here. And sometimes we have to look at what does the consumer want? And that's the thing that as a company, we're very pro is we have to meet the consumer where they want to be met, not where we want to meet them. We have to meet them where they want to be met. And I think as we simplify and follow kind of where LEAP is going, I think that's going to bring us into the next evolution of making this more transparent and and easier across all channels.
Well said. And we'll talk even more about this week during the conference. Denee, should people just go to your website to give feedback? Is there a specific place they should be able to we'll obviously work on this in RESO work groups, but how should they contact you?
Well, one, I would say you can just email info@Council of MLS with any feedback, suggestions, if you want to be part of the conversation, which I hope that you do, and that we can continue the collaborative and transparent nature that we've been doing to, like, as Nick said, that how much more collaborative the environment is today of working on getting this process done. And I think how important it is for us as an industry to innovate. And as Nick said, that keeping the consumer in mind. When I did start, I would mention the consumer and people would tell me, shh, we don't talk about the consumer at the MLS. like don't do it. And now it's like totally changed, and which I think is a big positive. And so making sure we're bringing that in as part of the conversation, but also realizing that MLS isn't, and why it's so important to continue this conversation, make sure that we do get it right, because the MLS's job is to ensure that gold star standard of data and that the data is being used appropriately. And so we want to have really good, thoughtful discussions about it and make sure that we can support the marketplace in fostering that innovation. So please collaborate, share your input. If for whatever reason, you just reach out and we'll get you in there and make sure you have an opportunity. But that is the goal of it, that it's more of a collaborative community process to creating policy that everybody has a stake in, because it takes, like I said, all those different parties to implement and run, whether it's the brokerage, the MLS, the vendors, and ultimately the consumer, right? That's who we need to make happy. So yes, please email and be part of the conversation.
And then for RESO membership, you're here this week. You're already hearing about it. Yesterday, you heard it in the broker advisory work group. The certification and transport work group is working on the technical model to be able to do these designations for different usages that could be a support for LEAP. You're going to hear more about it in the pain point session on day 3, because this is clearly a big topic. So our work groups can contribute. We can get that information back to CMLS. At the end of the day, we've got to have a solution that can make it through NAR that all of the brokers and the MLSs support. So we're looking forward to working on you more with this. Nick and Denee, thanks for being here. Great to have you with us.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks for having me.